Hello wonderful people, and welcome to a brand new journey through the world of real estate. I am your host STELLA SARU, and I am thrilled to launch the first episode of Real Estate Insights. And with me I have a remarkable guest, a surveyor extraordinaire, who will be helping us to demystify the enigma of real estate. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you. My name is GITAU. I'm a land surveyor and a physical planner. I run a company called Planland Consult based in Kiambu and Kikuyu.
Thank you. Let's start with the journey of land acquisition. So could you please explain to us the process of buying land in Kenya? Yes, and from identifying the right piece of land to the final land transfer.
Okay.
Yes.
So generally the process of purchasing land will start by whoever is interested in purchasing getting to identify where they want to purchase. And they do that in the, I can discuss this in the legal perspective or in the surveyor's perspective. What you need to do is, after you identify a piece of land that you want to purchase, you are supposed to conduct a search, a land search. That's done in the land registry. After that, you need to engage a land surveyor who is going to help you find the location and confirm if indeed that's the accurate position of the land and if the dimensions tally with the survey records. So after you do this, you are supposed now to engage a lawyer for an agreement. After you have the agreement, the next stage is now going to the land control board, where you seek a consent to transfer. This is in assumption that the title for that property already exists. So you'll have to attend the land control board, who will give you a consent to transfer. And after the transfer, after the land control board, the purchaser, both the sellers and the purchasers will need to have their KRA pins, ID and colored passports. The other important thing is that a lawyer is going to endorse this transfer process. After that, you're going to forward the documents to the registry where you can acquire your title. It's also important to note that when you're acquiring your title at the land registry, you'll need to pay stamp duty, which is usually 2% for rural land and 4% for urban or municipal land.
Yeah. Okay. During land acquisition, there's the importance of one doing a proper or their own property due diligence.
Yes.
Please explain to us what are the key components of a thorough land due diligence process.
Okay. Due diligence can be in two ways, the formal and the informal. The first, of course, is when you visit the site. At the site, you have neighbors, you ask for the history. That is a very important thing, such that you know the history of that land. Those are things that you may not get in the records at the survey office or at the land registry. Okay, but when you come to the Ministry of Lands, you'll need to check on the search. That is the one that defines the property, the owner of the property, the size of the property, and if the property has any encumbrances, that is loans or any cautions or restrictions. The other important document after the search is a mutation. The mutation is the one that gives you the dimensions of a property, the acreages, and the orientation of the land. To get this mutation, you'll need to engage a surveyor who can get that for you. Also, in line with the mutation, there's a map, also called as an RIM, or a registry index map, you'll also need to get it. This one is one that clearly shows you the location of the parcel in regards to the other abutting parcels. So when you're doing your due diligence, you need a search, the mutation, and the map. The other thing is, of course, you engage the professionals to go and visit the site and verify the same. Yeah.
Okay. So I've been hearing the terms freehold and leasehold titles used frequently.
Yeah.
Can you shed a light on the differences between these title types and when should one consider each?
So the difference between freehold and leasehold, as is, freehold and leasehold is about land tenure or ownership system. So in Kenya there are two land ownership systems, the freehold and the leasehold. Freehold means that you are given absolute ownership by the government. You are not supposed to pay any rent on that land and the term is absolute, is like it's yours for as long as you're there. The other one is leasehold. The leasehold has a term, a specific term period, and you're also supposed to pay what you call land rent. Land rent is what you pay to the national government because it's a lease. It's just like you'd rent a house. You're supposed to pay rent. So the equivalent of that in land is the land rent, which is paid annually at the central registry at the house. Yeah.
And is it possible for a property owner to convert from leasehold to freehold?
No, after the new constitution from 2010, this has not been possible. The new Land Registration Act of 2012 does not give a procedure that allows conversion of leasehold to freehold. But you can do now, the opposite is possible, the reverse. You can convert from freehold to leasehold. This is a very important procedure for foreigners who want to own land in Kenya. They need, because in the constitution you cannot own, a foreigner is not supposed to own freehold land. So in case they purchase here, they are required to convert from freehold to leasehold. That's possible.
So succession is a topic that's close to many hearts. Could you outline the succession process when it comes to land and property in Kenya?
Yeah, sure. So succession is guided by the Succession Act. It is a legal process where people benefit from the property once the registered owner dies or becomes a deceased. So the family is supposed to identify an administrator. They also they acquire a letter from the chief's office. And they're also supposed to have a death certificate to carry out this. And all the members of the family, the direct beneficiaries, should be involved in this process. So after having all these documents, they can engage a lawyer, an advocate, who can then present their papers to the court. Normally, these are a process that takes about 9 months, and you're expected to, by the end of the process, you get 3 deliverables out of it. The first thing is you get a Kenya Gazette that states who is the administrator as per the court. The second thing is you're also given what you call grant letters of administration. It's a document from the court which defines also who is the administrator. The third and last document is called the grant letters of administration. These letters of administration define the mode of distribution. For example, if you had, say, 10 acres of land and you have 5, so you'll clearly define that so-and-so gets 2 acres, so-and-so gets 3 acres. Once you have these documents, you're supposed to engage a surveyor who is now going to help you carry out subsequent subdivisions. Another important thing to note is that when doing a succession, the beneficiaries of the properties are not by law supposed to pay stamp duty. So it becomes a bit friendly to people who are benefiting out of a succession process. Ideally, it takes 9 months in the court system, and the normal processing for the survey about 3 months. Yeah.
So let's say in an instance where the heirs have a dispute,
Yeah.
how can they resolve the disputes and conflicts during the succession process?
So the succession process is given 9 months. The major reason for this is to allow people to have a conversation amongst themselves. So there are many mechanisms nowadays to solve disputes. One, the Succession Act itself defines how you should succeed if you're not able to decide amongst yourselves, the court can give a guideline on how you're going to share your properties. That is not the best, and it's not nearly the ideal situation. The most ideal situation is that the family itself decides and agrees on who's going to get what. Nowadays there is the mediation. The courts have given a better way to solve your disputes by going through a mediation process, whereby if you're not agreeing, you meet a mediator who then helps you solve your disputes. Yeah.
Okay, and something else, when should the succession process ideally begin after the owner of that land passed?
The succession can only begin after 3 months, because naturally you cannot have a death certificate before 3 months after the owner of the property. After one dies, you are given a death certificate after 3 months. This document is a prerequisite for carrying out the succession process. So anytime after 3 months, you can begin your process.
So what is the role of a surveyor in the succession process?
So the surveyor comes in 2 instances. The first is when the family meets and decides that you're going to do your own, how you're going to share the property, you need to engage a surveyor, because he prepares a drawing, a schedule showing, because for example you might have land and you're not sure how many acres it is. So it's very important that for you to supply the court with accurate information, you'll need to engage a surveyor who is going to come to the site and carry out the subdivision, give you the actual measurements. This is very important because once you present to the court, before you get the actual mode of distribution or the letters of confirmation of grant, the confirmation of grant details the exact shareholding of a person in this parcel of land. So the person who can only give you this actual shareholding is a surveyor. So that's the first instance. But after you're done with the court, you'll need again to get back to the surveyor to take you through the subdivision process paperwork. Other than the groundwork, which should have been done before, the surveyor now is going to help you through the subdivision process. That's acquiring the approvals, the land control board consent for subdivision. After that, he's going to take you through the drawings. That's the mutation form or a deed plan, depending on the type of the survey. Then after that, the surveyor is also going to help you acquire the subsequent titles as per the confirmation of grant from the court. Yeah.
Now, in that process of subdividing land in Kenya, how does this work, and are there any distinctions in the process when dealing with freehold titles versus the leasehold titles?
Yeah, yes and no. It's not really a distinction. The real difference is not in the freehold or the leasehold, because as I stated earlier, leasehold and freehold is an ownership, it's a tenure system. So the difference comes in because there are 2 types of surveys in Kenya. Is what we call general boundary survey, and that's what people normally refer to mutation surveys. The other survey is called fixed boundary survey. This is where you find surveyors using what we call the modern equipments. Today we use total stations, and currently we use GNSS or RTK survey equipments. The whole difference is the general boundary survey, one is the accuracy. That means that's why you see a surveyor comes with just a normal linen tape, because the accuracy demand for this process is not as high. So that's for the general boundary. The other point about the mutation survey is that it takes a short time than the fixed boundary survey. The term that you hear in the fixed boundary survey is a deed plan. The whole difference, as I stated, 1 is the accuracy, 2 is instrumentation, and normally the fixed boundary system of survey is a bit lengthier. Okay, how do you know the difference between a general boundary and the fixed boundary? When you present your documents to the surveyor, he's able to distinguish, because right from the colonial times, the initial surveys dictated which land is to be fixed and which one is to be general boundary. Most of the rural land that we see around is general boundary, and you get your titles locally. as opposed to the fixed boundary where titles are only achieved from the central registry at the house. However, it's also important to note that the new Land Act of 2012 is harmonizing all these types of surveys, whereby they are doing the conversions that in future will not be having these two different types of surveys. It will only be one, but we are not yet there. Yeah.
And who typically initiates the process of subdividing land?
The initiator of the land subdivision process, of course, is the owner. Yes.
And what documents and approvals are required for this process?
For the process. So the document that you have to have when you have seen a surveyor is one, the title, the land title. Other than that, there are instances where people have only allotments, and that's a different topic altogether. But mostly you need just to have your title. Yeah.
Now, in the subdivision process, what is your role as a surveyor?
My role as a surveyor is to visit the ground. That's number one. Not even before I visit the ground. When you come to my office, for example, when you want to engage me, the first thing is that I'll first confirm through a search that your land is free of any encumbrances, has no loans, has no restrictions, because ideally you should not work on any land that has restrictions. Once I verify that, I'm going to visit the survey office and acquire a map. A map or a mutation. This will guide me. It will be the datum for carrying out my work. After that, my other role is to visit the site as a surveyor and do beacons on site. These are the ones that are going to define the actual subdivisions. The other thing is that it's my role to submit documents to the land survey office on behalf of the client, where the new numbers are issued. For example, if your title number was say Kikuyu/this, you are issued with the new numbers from the survey office. These new numbers are the ones that you take again to the registry for issuance of titles as per the numbers issued at the survey office. Also, I didn't mention that it's also the role of the surveyor to help you apply to the land control board to acquire the consent. Yeah.
Okay. So something else that it affects most people who are landowners is boundary disputes, and it's a nightmare for every property owner.
Yeah.
So could you share insights how to resolve such disputes and prevent them from arising in the first place?
Yeah. The best way to prevent disputes is always to engage or involve professionals. The professionals in land ideally are majorly three. The lawyer, when you are beginning your transactions. The other person is a physical planner, is a very important person. The other person is a land surveyor. And where need be, a valuer is also important. But other than that, for the disputes arise because of there are family issues that come. And the best way to solve a dispute of land, as I said, the courts have nowadays brought in mediation processes. That's the best, because at the end of the process, people will come together, as opposed to court cases, whereby after the case is ruled, you can only be enemies. But if there's no option, the other option, of course, is to go to the court. The other important thing to note is that disputes are only handled by the land registrar. In the event that you're not able to agree within or amongst, say, your neighbors, for example, the first thing is you should visit your local chief. If you're not able to agree, you escalate it to the next issue, or you go to the land registrar. The land registrar is going to visit the site together with the district surveyor. If still you're not contented, now you can go to the court, which can give a guideline. Yeah.
And what common issues or factors lead to boundary disputes?
There are many issues that may lead to disputes, but most of the time is the measurements. Mostly you find because as we say, there's general boundary and fixed boundary survey. So general boundary surveys do not have high accuracy demands or requirements, even from the surveyor. You'll find most of the parcels in Kenya initially had something we call PIDs, preliminary index diagrams. before they graduated to the maps that people know. So you find that even there are some instances where land has lost even 50 meters. So you can imagine having 2 or 3 acres of land and you lose just 50 meters. So you see, of course, as we increase, people want to do survey. That's why they realize that maybe our dimensions are not tallying. And because general boundary survey is largely an approximation, disputes have to be there. But for the fixed boundary survey, you rarely find disputes because it's well a scientific form of survey.
So how can you as a surveyor help resolve boundary disputes effectively?
Yeah, my role as a surveyor is to ensure, of course, that once you engage me or any surveyor is to be as professional as possible. You also need to know that one of the major reasons that we have so many disputes is because people choose to engage who they call surveyors, but they are ideally quacks. So I think one of the major reasons we have is you need to verify that the surveyor you're working with is qualified. That's number one. And then the role of this surveyor is to do their work professionally and advise you.
Okay. We've all heard stories about title deeds being left behind by the deceased, but with no knowledge where that land is located.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through how such situations can be resolved?
Yeah, those are very common instances. Now, in the event you have, if a deceased left properties, or say you have a title deed, as long as you have the title number, a surveyor is able to get the possession of your land. How is this possible? If you buy, most of the maps they have coordinates. There's something called georeferencing. So a surveyor is able to work backwards and identify for you the exact position of your land. Yeah.
Also, there's this story that's been trending about houses being demolished in Mavoko at the river. What role would you have played as a surveyor in this matter?
Yeah. Now, as I said, the first thing is, as a professional, there's the ethics. There's the ethics bit. You need to be ethical. But other than that, you need to realize the history of most of the properties that we have. Mostly one of the major reasons you find these demolitions coming on is because in this instance, for example, they were leasehold titles. The history of these parcels, mostly they are usually granted by the government through an allotment letter. You find that most of these parcels you find with so many disputes. There are instances where people were issued with allotments to different people, but for the same parcel. So it all starts with anyone or everyone in the government system that you are working with. But the surveyor here will only help you. We only deal with surveyed properties, not unsurveyed. In this case, for example, due diligence would have been important. That is, you visit the survey offices and you visit the other house. But also, again, you also need to know that not everyone that works, we cannot guarantee, other than doing a search, a professional might not guarantee more. The custodian of land documents is the government. So it's important that, other than the surveyor doing for you the groundwork, you really do a serious background. For example, there is a document we call in general boundaries a green card. Other than doing a search, you should go deeper, like get into the file of this property to know where it originated. So in this instance, the people should have visited, say, the Machakos, the local authorities there to find out if indeed the allotment was genuine. There is also an office at the house where you can verify what we call PDPs, or power development plans, before titles or leases are created. So those are the due diligence issues that one needs to have done when purchasing such leasehold properties.
Okay, I've heard you mentioning about the green card. Please tell us more about what exactly this is.
Yeah. A green card ideally is just is the record of your property that the government has on its site. I usually tell people it's just like when you visit the hospitals, they have a record that they keep for you, like a card. Similarly, when you have your title, there is an equivalent of a card at the registry. where the details of your property are stored. This record is what you call a green card.
When does one need it most, or is it you can apply it in all land or properties?
Yes.
You apply it everywhere.
Yes, you can. No, for the general boundary survey, that's why you have green cards, and that's where you can get them from. If you are, say, for example, you're purchasing property, rather than doing a search, you can go further and purchase a green card, because a green card gives you more of the history of the person up to that date. But the green card will just give you the instantaneous, the current situation. A green card gives you the history. So that's one of the things that should be done in a due diligence exercise.
This has been an enlightening conversation, and thank you so much for coming. If anyone would like to reach out to you, how is that possible?
As I mentioned, I run a property company called Plan Consult Limited. It's a land surveying and planning company. We are based in Kiambu Town, Kikinga Annex, second floor, suite 203. And in Kikuyu, in a building called Joy Center, second floor, room 50 and 51. Other than that, you can also see us through our website, www.planlandgeo.co.ke. Thank you.
Until next time, keep those real estate dreams alive and those questions flowing. Bye.